am a huge fan of Hector, who is one of the latest legendary commanders to land in Rise of Kingdoms, and as you can see, I still even have him as a trial here. But what I really should be saying is I love the idea of Hector. There's something about Hector that I am a huge fan of, but even more than that, there's also one thing that I absolutely despise about him, and no, it's probably not what you think, and I haven't done a dedicated video on Hector yet, so I want to give you guys my thoughts and opinions on him as a commander. But first, what's going on, guys? Cheers. Now, as you guys know, I'm a sponsored partnered creator with Rise of Kingdoms, so if you want more raw content, consider subscribing down below. But Hector, legendary leadership, versatility, and support commander. We're going to go over a talent build or a couple of talent builds for him later in the video, but really he's probably going to be a secondary no matter how you use him. But let's just quickly go over his skills. I know I covered this in the reveal video, but you can use the timestamps down below if you want to skip ahead. His first skill for infantry deals 2600 smite damage to one target, and for 3 seconds up to 5 allies take 5% less damage. For cavs, it's 2800 across 2 combo attacks, and for 3 seconds 5 enemies take 5% more normal damage. And for leadership or archers, he deals 2700 damage factor. For 3 seconds 5 enemies deal 5% less damage and lose 15 rage per second. That's 45 rage total. The second skill is 40% of stats, 30% defense, 10% health, and 20% march speed. Third skill takes 10% less normal damage, and if he's behind an infantry commander, whenever you deal smite damage, there's a 50% chance that the damage will be increased by 15%. When you're behind a cavalry commander, whenever a troop launches a basic attack, you have a 20% chance to launch an extra combo attack that is an instant proc of 400. This can trigger up to 3 times per second. And if you are archers or leadership, whenever you inflict a debuff on an enemy, you take 5% less damage for the next 10 seconds, and this stacks twice, so you go up to 10%. Fourth skill says if you are behind infantry or cavalry, every second you have a 50% chance to gain a 20% bonus to normal damage dealt for 5 seconds. Very long buff there, but a very long 7-second cooldown. Otherwise, for archers and leadership, every second there's a 50% chance to gain a 30% bonus to skill damage dealt for the next 5 seconds, also a 7-second cooldown. And the expertise, pretty basic stuff. If you have one troop type, you deal 10% more all damage, pretty good. If you have at least 2 unit types, you take 10% less smite, combo, and skill damage. Okay, so that is Hector's kit. Now, why did I say that I love Hector, or at least the idea of Hector? Well, 2 reasons. First of all, he is, of course, obviously a leadership commander, which means this is one of those commanders that we will constantly have to be going back to as a commander that maybe you could squeeze in as a secondary to a future commander, just to see if it's actually meta or viable or good, right? That's one of the cool things about leadership, is that they work behind any troop type. Not only that, but his stat distribution is better than Philip. His active skill actually deals damage, unlike Philip, and honestly, he has multiple ways of dealing damage, and he's pretty tanky. So all in all, as a versatile secondary commander, I actually really love Hector. Now, the one Achilles heel of Hector, no pun intended, is that the active skill, of course, is single target damage. So for open field viability, I'm not super convinced that he's going to be one of the best commanders in the game. I think that he will see some use, especially with cavalry, but for the most part, he's not really going to be a must-have open field commander unless there's some crazy pairing that we haven't seen yet. But here's the thing, the single target damage is mainly only a big issue for open field fighting, which means if you use this commander in a garrison, for example, then he's actually super strong. We've seen lots of Hector test reports as a garrison where he performs actually quite well, especially with infantry. And again, this is where his versatility lends himself to being good in multiple areas, because none of his skills say when he's on the map or when you're attacking somebody on the map. Like, that is typically what you see for a lot of commanders that the developers don't want to be absolutely broken as a garrison or a rally or whatever, because as you can see here, like the second skill on Arthur, if this commander's troop is attacking a field troop, then you gain the stats, right? So if you're using Arthur to swarm down a flag, for example, he just doesn't get stats. I don't know if you guys noticed that. Same thing with the third skill. If this troop is attacking a field troop, you gain 30% bonus to whatever damage type, right? So again, if you're swarming a flag, you just don't get that bonus. It's just a flat 10% instead. And so there's a lot of nuance with the commander design that kind of locks commanders into one role or another, but we don't actually really see that with Hector, which is why he's not only a commander that can be used by basically any troop type in the open field, but he also is going to be somebody that you can use with pretty much any troop type in a garrison, which I think is fantastic. So the idea of Hector is something that I absolutely love, right? I think that we actually truthfully need more commanders like this in Rise of Kingdoms, where, you know, you can invest in him and trust that he will have some use somewhere in in your lineup right now. Unfortunately for Hector, again, for open field, I think the fact that he's single target damage, I'm not that excited for him, truthfully. And even if he does end up being a meta for your second or third army of a given troop type, I do think that his days are unfortunately numbered in that role until we see more AoE commanders come out for that troop type, and then pretty much he just goes in the bin, right? I mean, that's really what it is. Or maybe he will just be exclusively used as a garrison moving forward, right? But the single target damage is not the reason that I also hate Hector. Okay, it's one of the reasons from a meta perspective, but from a higher level game balance perspective, I actually have one really big problem with Hector, and we're gonna get into that in just a second. But before we do, I do want to share with you guys a couple of talent builds here. Now this is of course for open field if you do end up using him as primary, which you probably never will unless you're one of those people that built a leadership set to run leadership in the field, which is very few of you, or unless maybe you're using him in Sunset Canyon. I think him being super tanky but still dealing damage is something that could be done there. I wonder how he would pair like with Shajar, for example. Of course, people are already using Shajar in Canyon because of her crazy healing. She's got all sorts of ways to heal herself and others, and in case you guys forgot, mighty healing is stronger than regular healing, obviously, right? And she herself is just super tanky. So that being said, one of the cool things about the leadership tree is that if we take a look at the talents here, you'll see that we have healing herbs where you can increase your healing by 9%. You also have elixir, which is also a 9% increase for healing, and if you wanted to, you could even grab counterattack that says whenever you get healing you gain 9% attack for 3 seconds. I think that's definitely something to look into if you're going to pair with Shajar for Canyon. But anyway, I'm going off on a tangent here. Here's a couple of talent builds that you could consider. This one goes all the way up to strategic prowess, which gives you 20% defense for 2 seconds when you use an active skill. Armed to the teeth is only if you're using 3 different troop types, which you probably are if you're running a leadership primary here. Of course, you grab fresh recruits for more units, you grab a little bit extra to more normal damage, you put 2 points into rejuvenate, 3 points into emergency protection, because there is so much skill damage on the field right now with Emperor Chin. Along the way, you grab loose formation, and then over here in the versatility tree you get yourself 6% march speed. Okay, so you actually have quite a bit of march speed on this tree. You have 6% here, you have 6% here, you also have 6% here, and now you have another 6% here. Okay, so pretty nice march speed. If you don't care for this march speed over here because you are actually wasting a bunch of points getting gathering speed, then you could do something like this, which is a little bit slower but you are a little bit tankier. Again, armored to the teeth is if you have 3 different troop types. Okay, so keep that in mind. And then of course you go all the way up and put 2 points into Cage of Thorns. Now really, do you need this? No, but it is an AoE slowdown, which is nice, right? It helps everybody else catch up to whatever target it is that you might be hitting. So that's definitely one route that you could go. And then again, this is probably what I would do if you're going to run him as a primary in Canyon with somebody who heals, like Shajar, for example. Okay, you put 3 points here, you get counter attack, and then you have all the extra bonuses to healing that we already talked about. 3 points into armor to the teeth for the extra damage mitigation, and that's how you're going to run it. You have 2 points in Steely Soul here for 1% more normal damage as well. If you wanted to, you could put one of those points here, but I don't think that that is really worth it. 2 points in rejuvenate on the support tree is really all you typically need, especially in Canyon, where you're probably going to put him in a position where he's swarmed, right? And if he's being swarmed, you're generating tons of rage. You don't really need 3 points here, but you know, it's up to you if you want to play it like ultra super mega safe, but I just don't recommend it. Okay, so now that we've gone over talent builds, let me share with you guys the one thing that I absolutely cannot stand about Hector, and this is once again more of a higher level meta perspective compared to just straight up like, is he good in the field, is he good in the garrison? Like, those are things that we can test, right? This is something that I think is kind of a fatal flaw with not only Hector but also with game design, and that is the fact that every skill on his kit except for the second skill is an absolute novel. Like, these are so long, it is insane. And this actually reminds me of another game that I used to play a ton, which is Yu-Gi-Oh. I know it's weird that we're drawing a comparison here with a trading card game, but of course these are both strategy games, and in a way they both have different metas and different archetypes, right? In Yu-Gi-Oh there are different, you know, different archetypes, like for example Dark Magician or Blue Eyes White Dragon, right? There are certain decks that you can build around a particular archetype. types. So there's the red eyes deck, right? And you have all these different red eyes black dragon cards, you know, and the same is true with Rise of Kingdoms. Now that we have formations and different types of damage, we now can build an army specifically for smite damage, where you have the smite damage commander, you have the smite damage formation, you have your gear for a specific troop type, but you also even have specific accessories for these different types of damage, right? We have the saddle of 1,000 blessings, hero's hilt for combo damage, and of course we have the pendant of eternal night for skill damage. So I know what you're saying, right, Omniarch? Well, what's the problem here, right? Like, what's the big deal that we've got a commander that, like, he fits in with different types of damage, right? Like, what's the big issue there? Well, let me just give you guys a quick example. Okay, this is a card called Man-Eater Bug, and if you've ever played Yu-Gi-Oh, especially back in the day, back in 2003 or whatever, you're probably familiar with this card. And even if you're a brand new player and you just learned the mechanics of the game, the effect of this card is extremely simple. If it's face down, you flip it face up and you destroy one monster on the field regardless of position. Okay, so no matter what, you flip it up, boom, a card explodes. Pretty simple stuff. Okay, let me share with you guys a modern Yu-Gi-Oh card called Cyber's Clock Dragon. This is not only just an effect monster just like Man-Eater Bug, but now it is a fusion effect monster. But wait, it's not just a fusion effect monster, because in order to get him you have to fuse him with a link monster. Okay, so out of the gate, before we even address this absolute novel down here, you now have to know at least 2 other mechanics to even understand what this card is. Okay, so we are now 2 tiers above Man-Eater Bug already. Remember, Man-Eater Bug, you flip the card, something else goes boom. For Cyber's Clock Dragon, it says when this card is fusion summoned, you can send cards from the top of your deck to the GY. For those that don't know, the GY is graveyard, and you might be saying, well, Omniarch, why didn't they just write graveyard? And it's because they ran out of space on the card text. I'm not even kidding. Older cards used to write out the word graveyard, but that word is too long and it takes up too much space. Anyway, send cards from the top of your deck to the graveyard equal to the total link rating of the materials used for this card's fusion summon, and if you do, until the end of next turn, other monsters you control cannot attack. Also, this card gains 1,000 attack for each card sent to the graveyard by this effect. Okay, so not only do you need to know what a fusion card is and what a link card is, but now you also need to know the total link rating of the cards that you use to summon the card, and we're only halfway done with the card text. Okay, while you control a link monster, your opponent's monster cannot target other monsters you control for attacks. Also, your opponent cannot target other monsters you control with card effects. If this fusion summoned card you control is sent to your graveyard by an opponent's card effect, you can add 1 spell card from your deck to your hands. Jesus Christ, ladies and gentlemen. So this is what it was, this is what it has become, and let me remind you guys that the current state of Yu-Gi-Oh is not exactly in its best point. Okay, Yu-Gi-Oh peaked, at least on Google Trends, in April of 2004, and it was pretty steady and healthy up until around August of 2013. We saw a little bit of a drop off, then it pops back up for just a little bit, and then it absolutely tanks at the end of 2016. It's actually a shocking drop off here. But as you can see, relative to its peak popularity, Yu-Gi-Oh is sitting at around between a 9 and a 15, which is not a great number. That's not a great place to be. Now, let me be very clear here. There's multiple reasons why Yu-Gi-Oh as a game has fallen so dramatically over the years, but one major reason for the game's poor performance is that the game is not accessible to new players. Even for me, somebody who played the game up until around the middle of 2014. Okay, so remember, the game came out in like 2002, 2003. I played on and off up until 2014. Pendulums came out and killed the game for me. But even still, with like a decade of understanding the game and being super familiar with a lot of the mechanics, even for me, if I wanted to come back to the game today, it's just so exhausting to learn the new meta and to learn how all these cards work and how all, it's just, I don't want to deal with it. I don't want to do it, right? Even though I love the franchise, I miss the game, I just don't want to do it. It's just too much work, right? And like, why would I do that when there's a million other games to play? And in the same vein as that is what we see with Hector here. This is something that I am not a fan of with his skills, is that each skill is so long and it has so many different effects depending on who you pair the commander with. And I think that for a new player and even for a returning player, like let's say you quit Rise of Kingdoms in the summer of 2023. Okay, let's just pick a random date. Let's just say summer of 2023, but you started playing at the beginning. Okay, so you played from 2018 all the way up through 2023, so that's like 4.5-5 years. Okay, you played Rise of Kingdoms, and if you came back today, you would open up this skill and say, well, I don't know what smite damage is, I don't know what combo attacks are. So right out of the gate, two of the skills and the expertise have wording in them that you are not familiar with. Doesn't that sound kind of insane, right? That you could play a game for 4.5 years and come back and there's commanders that have these walls of text filled with mechanics that you've never even heard of. It just feels like you missed a lot. Right now, look, if you're really invested in coming back, all you got to do is click this button and it explains it, right? You click on combo attacks, it explains exactly what it does with another paragraph, mind you. Okay, but my point is that from a new player friendly perspective, this is definitely, in my opinion, a problem. Just compare Hector's skills here with Freddy. I mean, this is basically the man-eater bug of Rise of Kingdoms. He is also a leadership commander and his skills are just super small, easy to understand, very basic stuff, right? Now let me be clear, obviously the reason that they do this is for game balance, right? Obviously that's why this is a thing. If he's just too universally good at everything, then he could break the garrison meta or the rally meta or the open field meta or whatever. Like, I get why they do this, and so they're trying to pick their poison here with developing Hector and like, okay, do we want to make him too strong, or if we don't make him strong enough, then no one's even going to care, and so we have to like make him specifically just this level of strength for each troop type, and that's how you get something like this, right? So again, I understand why they did this, but I do think that in the future I don't want to have to keep dealing with this, because if I don't want to deal with it as a player of 7 years, then a brand new player is definitely not, like, there is absolutely no way a new player is going to care about any of this stuff, right? Like, you need to play the game for months before you even get your hands on Hector, so I understand that you're going to develop your understanding during that time, right? But I mean, if you're a brand new player and you just started watching my videos or Chiskel or whoever, and you're learning like, oh yeah, like I should get YSG because he's like pretty good in the early game and I can maybe swap him later or use him with like this Emperor Chin guy I keep hearing all about, right? And by the way, Emperor Chin suffers from the exact same problem. These skill effects are just too damn long. They're just too damn long. New players don't want to have to read an absolute novel, okay? But my point is, going from this to something like this or this is just wild, right? It's just so it's a problem that has only gotten worse, right? And to be clear, like, we've had issues like this with past commanders, like with Harold, right? Harold has had really long skill descriptions as well. It's crazy to think that it's even longer now than it was back then, and Harold has been around since 2021, right? So like, this is not a new problem that Rise of Kingdoms has faced, of course, right? But I mean, you know, even as long as Zenobia's first skill is, it's just her first skill, the rest are normal compared to somebody like Emperor Chin or like Hector. Okay, so that's gonna do it for today's video. I just want to share with you guys the fact that I love Hector. I love the idea of Hector. I love the versatility. I love that you can use him in the field or in a garrison or maybe even a rally. We'll have to wait and see more testing here, but well, I guess he doesn't get the fourth skill in a rally, but my point is, he's very versatile. Okay, he's very versatile, so I love that about him. But the way that they've gone about making him so strong and versatile is through a method that I think ultimately is not good for the game. I really just genuinely think that we can't keep doing this, boys. We can't keep doing it. Like, it's just too much. Like, it makes the barrier to entry just so freaking high when you land in Season of Conquest. It's like, what even is, I gotta understand all this stuff. Like, and by the way, I've talked about this in the past, but another TCG that didn't die on like Yu-Gi-Oh is the Pokemon TCG, and the way that they solve this problem is they have seasons. So there's a certain format and you can only use cards from a certain format, and that format is constantly progressing, and so you're basically shedding your dead skin as the meta progresses, and you're getting rid of all these old cards that maybe are too broken with the new cards or whatever, they're too confusing, and whatever the case might be. And so the meta is constantly evolving and shedding that loose skin. And I think, I mean, I don't know, we've been in Season of Conquest for as long as I can remember, and so maybe that is something for the developers to consider. But I know that just even that implication is gonna have people freaking out in the comment section below. And also, like, look, I don't want to be told what commanders I can and can't use either, right? Like, let me just be very clear here. But like, I don't know, man, it's just getting crazy, and I'm just trying to think of a way that we could circumvent this problem from occurring in the future. But guys, that's gonna do it for today's video. If you enjoyed this video, drop a thumbs up on it, comment down below your thoughts on Hector, and consider subscribing if you're new here. With that that being said, guys, thank you so much for watching. This has been Omniarch. I'll talk to you guys again soon. Peace.